Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another one of our video mini sessions. My name is Andrew Roush from TCEA. I'm our communications specialist, and I host our podcast, the Ed Tech Club. You can check that out on your favorite podcast player or at tcea.org/edtechclub. And in this quick session, we're talking about recording podcasts from anywhere. So here I am on my back porch. And we're going to talk to you about how to record podcasts remotely. Podcasts can be done totally remotely. We've always been able to do that for the most part throughout the history of podcasts. So if you have been doing a podcast in person with your class perhaps, or for your work, or you're looking to get into podcasting, this will be a good little session about doing it remotely. So let's jump in. This is part of our remote learning series here at TCEA. You can check that all out at the link there, tcea.org/remote learning. And so there are three basic steps to putting together a podcast. The first is planning, the second is recording and editing, and the third is distribution. So planning involves figuring out your format, figuring out the style. Will it be hosted? Will it have interviews? Will it be a roundtable discussion? Will there be one host or many? What will you talk about? And also your voice, that is the tone of the podcast, the way you want it to sound, the feel you want it to have. Maybe you want it to be upbeat and energetic. Maybe you want it to be cool and relaxed. Maybe you're doing a history class and you want it to sound and feel like a certain historical era. Those are all things you'll have to take into account. Maybe you're an ELA teacher or a librarian and students are turning stories into podcasts. Well, then you might want to put some sound design in there. That could be a fun part of the project. So the second step is recording and editing. And of course, you need two things. You need hardware and you need software. The hardware in question for a podcast usually is a set of headphones. Nowadays, a lot of headphones come with onboard mics like this one that's recording me right now, or even your computer or phone or other internet-connected devices will have that capability. So you probably already have a microphone you can use. And as any audio engineer would say, the best microphone is the microphone you have. So the software portion gets a little more interesting, and we'll jump into that. But the software is how you capture, edit, and then export that sound file that becomes your podcast. And finally, there's distribution. That means hosting, not like I'm hosting this chat, but hosting the file online somewhere so people can access it. And promotion, getting it out on social media, getting people to listen, to talk about it, to share it, and to review it. Those are all crucial aspects of podcast success, generally defined, and might be for you. Of course, you'll have to come up with your own metrics, and that's part of it. So when we think about planning and we think about format, that's the type of question we want to think about. How do we measure success? But also other questions like this: how long is an episode? 20 to 40 minutes is usually pretty good for a podcast. Of course, with people working remotely and staying isolated, they don't commute as much. It might not make as much of a difference, but while there are 2-hour podcasts out there that regularly come out each week with 2 hours of content, somewhere in that 20 minutes to 40 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour kind of a range usually works pretty well. And you'll find that if you go for 20 minutes, it still takes a pretty good amount of work to do 20 minutes versus an hour. Will you have guests? Will there be interviews? Will it be roundtable discussions? Will the format always be the same? What's the frequency? These are the kinds of things you'll think about in format. Will it be produced? One of the things that means is, will it have sound design? Will it have sound effects? Will it have music beds underneath the discussion? Will it have transitions from different parts? And a podcast doesn't have to start that way. It could be something you grow into. Maybe there are certain things you always find yourself doing anyway that just become a part of the show. Those are the things you should keep your eyes open for as you're starting. How will it get hosted and where will it live? Not physically, but where will the data be in the cloud, and how will it get out to people? How can we incorporate student voice? And of course, our learning goals, our curriculum requirements. How is this project going to meet that? are questions you should be answering before you get started. And how do we differentiate the tasks involved, again, in planning, recording and editing, and distributing a podcast? If you're working with students, think about the assessments you've made, think about what their interests are, their strengths are, where they need to build skills and where they have skills, and how you might get them interested in the different parts of this process. As you go through, you'll find some specific things maybe that people are really into or really good at and maybe don't want to be a part of. And that's going to help you put together the actual project of doing a podcast in an education context. So as we talk about recording options, a distance recording option that's always available is recording a phone call. There's a lot of apps, some of them free, that will allow you to make a phone call, put on another line, record the whole conversation, download, or upload to the cloud. So look for call recording apps if you're thinking of managing interviews. It's a really simple way to do it. If you're recording direct to computer, there's a few options. Audacity is a good one. It's free, open source, works on Windows, Apple, and Linux, and it allows you to record, edit, and export the kinds of sound files you need. Looks a little wonky if you're looking at that thinking it looks complicated. I promise it's not. When it comes to music production, there's a lot of things you can do. When it comes to podcast production, you don't always have to be so picky. It can be a little more straightforward than it looks. And of course, you can be like me and spend hours on YouTube watching videos on what does this button mean. But yeah, Audacity is a really good free option that can work on just about any computer. Zencastr is getting popular. It is a kind of a voice over IP system that allows you as a host, or as many hosts as you want, or as many guests as you want, to call in to one call. You as the person controlling it can record it. You can even make notes and do all sorts of there's lots of little tools within it. But this is kind of a voice over IP calling system where everyone can call in, record at the same time, and get one recording with all the different tracks of everyone who is on the call. In that regard, it's a very powerful remote podcast recording program. And you can see on their website, they have opened it up a little bit while people are working and learning remotely. So you can have unlimited guests, and they raised the monthly time cap, the amount of time that you can record with them. So that's something to look at, Zencastr. Anchor.fm might be the most popular one, especially in education. It's completely free. And the difference with Anchor is not only will it help you with recording and editing, it'll also help you with distribution. So this is kind of an all-in-one system. It even has apps where you can record from your phone or from your computer. So Anchor is a pretty powerful one that you can use, and a lot of people do use. And then there are the normal software programs that live on your computer and aren't internet connected, but that of course you can get from the internet. Adobe's audio production software is Audition. You can see if you have an Adobe license, this is a great option for you, of course. And you can see there is an Audition license only. You can get that as well. This is a standard, powerful recording software. It's going to do everything you want it to do, and it's an Adobe product. And then on iOS, you have GarageBand. Probably familiar with that one, or have at least heard of it. That is free with iOS, comes preloaded with Apple devices as well. And pretty straightforward. Despite being called GarageBand, you can also, of course, record audio. And as I say, it's even a little bit easier when you're just recording audio. GarageBand, again, will do everything you want it to do. But once you've recorded and edited, played around with that a little bit, and you feel confident about your product, you have to get it out in the world. So, hosting options. Again, hosting is actually putting the sound file on the internet, letting it live there so it can always be accessed, downloaded, or streamed. Here's some good hosting options. Buzzsprout has a free limited version. Pretty popular and pretty straightforward in terms of uploading your file and then distributing it to all the different podcast directories. And you can see on their website, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, even personal assistants like Alexa. Anchor, again, we looked at that a moment ago, but Anchor is the all-in-one, so you'll also get hosting and distribution through Anchor. Blueberry is a hosting service. It has very powerful analytics, and one of the benefits of Blueberry is it has WordPress integration. So if you, as an educator, or your class or your school or your district has a WordPress website, it's kind of a one-step process of uploading into WordPress, creating a web page for that episode automatically, and then automatically distributing that to the most popular platform. So Blueberry is a good option, not free. Also not free, but very powerful is Libsyn. This one's really popular on the professional level, starts at $5 a month, and it's been around for a long time. So Libsyn is a pretty good one as well, but again, not free. And of course, when it comes to hosting, you should talk to your IT folks at your school or your district. They might be able to host it through the school or through the district. Definitely worth checking that first before you jump too far in. So when it comes to getting a podcast out in the world, pretty straightforward. Record audio and find a way to distribute it. But if you really want to do it up, make a plan, compare these different options, and then choose the one that works for you. So if you have any questions or you want to go more in depth on this topic, let me know. I'm aroush@tcea.org. And if you have podcast specific questions or you want to know more about our podcast, the EdTech Club, shoot us an email at podcast@tcea.org. And don't forget to check out more remote learning videos here on this website, tcea.org/remote learning.